Godzilla the Planet Eater 1, 2, and 3 are a trilogy of Netflix movies that harken back to the original Godzilla, where the monster is natural punishment. The narrative doesn't dwell on this specifically, though. Like, there is a lot of dwelling and a lot of navel-gazing about how we're punished and how cities are bad. But the thesis of Godzilla Planet Eater is that in order to survive punishment, some things need to die with the old generation. The main character kills himself in a non-assault on Godzilla in order to stop the ideas of his own hatred and not pass it on to the humans that inhabit the Earth. Because the tribes that now live on Earth have done away with the ideas of hatred and wrath and scorn. It's a jarring experience all around, where Godzilla the Planet Eater is set up like most movies in anime, but you don't realize that instead of going for action shonen, we're gonna beat them, they're going for tragedy, we're all gonna die. It was jarring for me when the first non-flashback was a busload of old people just, sacrificing themselves, so that the resources on the starship can go further, so that the younger generation can survive. At the time, I thought this was just like a thing that the main character would have to fight and make people realize that surviving is good. In the midst of people sacrificing themselves and going to battle and trying to kill the great Godzilla, I figured the lesson would be we need to learn how to live. And instead it's we need to die for the people that already know how to live. We see two humanities in the Netflix Godzilla. The humanity that survived being attacked by Godzilla, the refugees that went through space with aliens and came back in order to conquer and destroy their foe for revenge, and the humanity that got left behind on Earth and grew and evolved with Godzilla and lived in its literal shadow underneath a giant Mothra egg. So these two generations, well, three. There are two generations on a ship, and there's a single generation living on Earth. And these generations are thousands of years apart. In several hundred years of living underneath the paranoid Godzilla that destroys any cities it sees, people have gone underground, and they have learned how to speak in different ways and started to live without technology and with primitive medicine that is also miracle working and does more than space medicine. Where the refugees are generations that lived in fear, that have tried to work through space, and that have an army and a military, and they're angry and they're displaced, and they have somewhere for that anger to go. When they return to the Earth, it has become alien to them. Plant life and leaves are actually harder than their knives can even break. Their bullets seem to have little effect on creatures there. Their technology, which would seem advanced to us, is actually very limited capabilities in the Earth that has been warped under the shadow of Godzilla. At every turn, the humans from space find themselves ill-equipped and outmatched. There are two alien species that help the refugees from Earth survive, but I forgot their weird made-up names, so let's just call them what they are. Space elves and space dwarves. And the two have a conflicting ideology. The space dwarves believe wholly in the power of technology, that technology is more powerful and transcendental to human flesh, or I guess living creature flesh, and that being part of a machine will grant you greater power and be able to overcome any obstacle, including the Godzilla, where the far minority of the group is the elves, who've embraced kind of an easygoing, make life better kind of mentality, and are spiritual leaders to the humans. And to Godzilla Planet Eater, all of these old ways are defeated movie by movie. First, there's the spirit and numbers of the humans as they attack Godzilla twice, and mostly die. Second movie, it's the advanced technology of the dwarves, where they find the Mechagodzilla and the nanomachine technology that made it a big Mechagodzilla and was not able to be used to kill Godzilla himself. And the second movie goes over how the tribal humans are afraid of the city, how the city itself can kill Godzilla, but that takes a sacrifice of literally becoming one with the nanobots in order to fight Godzilla. But the main character resists this and does not let the nanobots take over his body, and thus does not kill Godzilla, and thus the dwarves fail, blaming their iniquities on the one human, the one guy that's like, okay, no, I don't want to be part of a weird machine thing. Third movie is the failure and victory of the elves. The elves actually run a death cult where they want to summon Ghidorah Ghidora. The space elves want to summon Ghidorah. But it's weird at the same time because the space elves seem to completely control Ghidorah. In one foul swoop, the space elves let Ghidorah destroy the space refugee ship, all of the people on Earth, and almost kill Godzilla. But they just stop. The humans get wiped out like 5 times. The first attack on Godzilla, where they lose just about all their advanced weaponry and their initial boarding party, they're able to scrape stuff together and do a second assault on Godzilla that succeeds, but it turns out that was Godzuki, and the real Godzilla was sleeping underground, and it's much bigger than 30 stories. They're wiped out again when the Mechagodzilla city is destroyed and the main character fails to just kill Godzilla. And then Ghidorah wipes out the rest before, I guess, the 5th major death when the main character commits suicide on Godzilla's face. And if you're coming to Godzilla looking for fight scenes, like maybe the first movie is the best one for you, because the rest is just Godzilla slowly moving and once in a while barfing on somebody. Like the Ghidorah fight scene is really boring. It's pretty much just Ghidorah reaching down and tickling Godzilla and not quite killing him. The fight scene almost takes the back seat to the themes being brought out close in magical imagery of war and the destructive nature of mankind and technology and why they're bad. But Godzilla is just a force of nature, so it's not Godzilla's fault. Also not Ghidorah's fault. I was majorly surprised when the whole thrust of the 3 movies was actually going to justify the first scene that I hated and thought that would be something we'd get over. And the reason why is because cities and technology is bad. To the movie. That there's no way we can live a good and peaceful life and coexist with the planet and have cities or medicine. And in one way, internally it makes sense. It would be like if you took a boatload of crusaders from the first crusade, but instead of going, maybe they didn't even sail on boats, but let's say the first crusade came in on a boat, and there's a boat full of 300 knights and soldiers that were poised for Jerusalem, but instead they get swept out of time and they land on the shores of New Jersey, where no one would notice. No, and they get into a lot of trouble and they end up killing a bunch of people because they're Muslim and just making a big row out of, we're from the Middle Ages and this planet is extremely wrong. And the message that Godzilla have is that these boatload of crusaders from the past have no way of integrating with our way of life now. Their ideas and their culture is so toxic and backwards and wrong that their very presence would dilute and make ours toxic, and that there's no way any of them can survive and assimilate. In one sense, I can kind of see how that might be true or that might happen. On the other hand, I think that's kind of dumb, and really dumb. If I went to the future, I would be eternally messing it up because of the things that I know and the things that I've learned from my culture and my surroundings, that I can only survive in this time, otherwise I do immense damage to the people around me. I can kind of see that, but at the same time, I'm not happy about it. The movie is also strongly for anarcho-primitivism, explained by Radical Reviewer in one of his videos, where there is no government, there is no technology, and the only way to live is in tribes without it. On that defensive hand, where it feels like the movie's saying that people can't learn. I do have several cultural sticking points, as a culture we think suicide is wrong, and as a culture we think that people can learn and grow. At least some people think that. If the main character was to stay in the tribe, he might teach them what anger is, and fear and wrath.
Is Godzilla scary?
In Godzilla, the people already learned how to forget those things once. They already learned to live under Godzilla. They already learned how to be peaceable.
Tornadoes and lightning are scary too. But, hatred... I don't understand.
They already learned what it means to coexist with nature, and part of my brain says we can just do that again. But the movie tells me that people had to die off, that it had to be generations living under this oppression of nature in order to coexist with it. And that's just really super bleak and dour look on life in the world.
You don't have to understand. Ever. As if we need to, we can choose to lose the battle.
So on that hand, I feel like primitivism is dumb and suicide is unnecessary. But I think it does have a super great point. Like, the super strong point. The moral that some bad ideas need to be thrown out is a good one, and it's a strong one. But the implication that some bad ideas can't be thrown out, and that people have to die, and the old generations that have those ideas have to die in order to move forward, is disturbing. The movie asks, what assumptions, which the very contact with will damage our future and our children, do we need to get rid of? And that's a powerful question. But the movie's implication, or stronger than implication, is that those things are technology and cities, is a tough one. Well, yeah, that's everything Godzilla meant.
Would you be embarrassed? Think I'm being careless if I said you're all I want more? Fingertips and collarbones, if I caught you on your own, would you mind my hand stitched into yours?